Hello and welcome to Light Warrior Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Can, author of the #1 best-selling book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower: How to Harness Your Gifts, Fulfill Your Purpose, and Create a Life of Joy. And if you're brand new to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like a free gift, I'd love to gift you, for sensitive souls, my Sensitive Soul Empowerment Guide, the 3 ways of navigating your way to more peace, positivity, and personal power. And you can get that at sensitivesoulguide.com. And today with me is a very, very special guest. She is actually a soul sister of mine, and we met from heartache to joy, one of the biggest global telesummits on the planet, having to do with energy healing. Dipal Shah is an amazing, amazing healer, intuitive, and she has helped so many people tap into their intuitive gifts. So let me share a little bit about her and then I can welcome her formally. So she's globally recognized energy medicine practitioner, mind reprogramming expert, international speaker, and a #1 best-selling author. With a passion for empowering women, Deepal is on a mission to guide individuals worldwide toward living authentically, finding happiness, and embracing the courage to live a purpose-driven life. And today, our topic is around how to love your intuition. Because sometimes people, they're like, well, I tap into my intuition or harness my intuition, but then they don't listen to it, or they don't think it's real, or they question it. And so we're going to be talking about how to not just harness your intuition, but really love and trust it. So, Deepal, thank you so much for being here on Light Warrior Radio.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Karen, for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. Well, any chance I get to be in your energy field is a pleasure. So, um, this is great. I think this is it's taken us a little while because we're both so busy, with our businesses to actually finally get together, right?
I know. There's been multiple times we were supposed to, and then the holidays came up, and I know we're both doing some great things. So you know what? And I truly believe in divine timing. So this is the perfect time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, tell us about your journey, like your what we call your hero's journey. How did you become who you are today?
Yeah. So I started to listen to my inner voice, is how it all started. A lot of times, we kind of put it on the back burner and we let our ego take over and we say, you know what? I know what's best. You need to be quiet. So at one point in my life, when I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, I decided that I'm just going to quit my job. Of course, it took me 2 years to listen to that inner voice that kept pounding and pounding on my brain saying, you need to quit, you need to quit. And I just couldn't take the action. I just couldn't do it physically. And then one day I opened up my mouth and I called my manager and I said, I'm quitting. And he said, I knew it. You should have done it long time ago. Like I knew it was coming. And I was basically just taking up space. And I realized that I didn't know what my purpose was, right? I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I was going to take care of my kids and take care of my health because I wasn't doing so well. I had a lot of digestive issues, unhealthy eating habits, and it was one thing after another. It was progressively getting worse. And so I took the time and I said, you know what? I'm going to take care of me for once because I had been working since I was 17 and I felt like I didn't know any better than to work. And so when I left the position, I started to understand that what is this body? What do I need to do with it? What does it need? And I started asking these questions to myself because I truly didn't understand who I was. All I knew was that I was this angry, controlling person, you know, and I didn't like myself. And when you get to that point, you're starting to question, what is my purpose? Who am I? Can I change? Because if I hadn't taken those steps, I know it would have, right now, maybe I'd be on a lot of medications. Maybe I would be in a darker place. And I didn't want to go that route because I knew there is light somewhere. There are answers somewhere, even though conventional medicine wasn't giving me what I needed because I was all about conventional medicine, being a pharmaceutical rep. but I knew there was something else. And so I just waited for the answer. I just waited for the universe to give it to me. And one day it did. It literally landed on my lap because my daughter, my youngest one, was very attuned to spirits, and she was picking up stones, bringing stones home, like rocks home, and talking to them. And every day this would happen. And so I kind of opened myself up to be like, okay, well, what's happening here? Why is she doing that? Is there something else there? And so she taught me how to tune into myself, and that there is this other part of not just ourselves, our physical selves, but out there in the spirit world. But I think inside, I was always afraid to tap into that because you're not taught that in school, right? That that's normal. You're not taught that anywhere. And so for me, when I started to open up to that, more opportunities started coming in. And all of a sudden, I was now learning to become an energy practitioner. Of course, I did a lot of energy healing sessions before I even decided that, because I wanted to make sure that it worked. And lo and behold, it was magnificent. My entire life turned around. Even now, if friends and family see me, they're like, you are a completely different person. And in a good way, right? Because they knew who and how I was before. And it completely changed my life, my perspective of things. And now that inner voice is what I allow to guide me through life. And when I don't, it shows me that, hey, you should have listened. And so now, as a energy healing practitioner, I teach others to also become more intuitive and strengthen their intuition, because I feel like it's such an important piece of us, not only in our health, but along life's journey, no matter where you are, whether it's your career, whether it's day-to-day decision making, whether you're dealing with stress, any kind of chronic health problems, your intuition is your guidance. And when you don't listen to it, then you'll see that it's going to start to speak louder and louder, until you do listen to it. And so that's how my journey just unfolded for me. And here I am today.
Wow, that's so neat. And you know what you just said about the intuitive messaging getting louder and louder. I like to liken it to the angelic 2x4. I come from an area in a small town where they, do a lot of construction, right? So there's like all these 2x4s lying around, and yeah, for me, I really had to get sick before I would listen.
Yeah,
A lot of people have to get to that. They call it the abyss or the dark night of the soul. And it
that
seems
was
like with
me.
us, yeah, healers is very similar journeys, right? They sometimes call it the wounded healer archetype,
Yeah.
that we go into that. And then the nice thing is we get to understand and be compassionate to others that are going through the same thing because we've actually literally felt it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know there was such thing as intuition, and I don't think a lot of people do, right? And what it meant to be intuitive, or what it is to be an empath. Like I had to learn all of that in my late 30s. And that's when I saw that my entire purpose changed after 40.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, because I feel like a lot of us find our way, our path after that age.
It's true.
And
My literally my mentor said that like 2 days ago. Like he literally said that 2 days ago that most entrepreneurs, like successful entrepreneurs, really start at age 40.
exactly. Obama became president after 40, right?
Oh yeah, Colonel Sanders didn't have Kentucky Fried Chicken until he was in the 60s.
Exactly. See?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. So when you were a younger little child looking back, did you feel now as the adult looking back that you were tapped into your intuition, or was all the programming kind of in the way?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the programming and beliefs and culture, a lot of things were in the way. And I think the biggest thing is the lack of knowledge, right? And I can't blame my parents or grandparents or anybody for that, because they didn't know how to describe it either. My mom always described it as God.
Okay.
Fine.
Very
That's
simply,
fine.
God.
Yeah, it's because God wants it that way, you
Oh,
know?
right.
But
I think I heard
but
that in yeah, my home too.
yeah, and it's very common. And even now she'll tell my kids, that's what God wants. And I'm like, okay, let's back up a little bit, you know. But let me just explain what being intuitive and what intuition is, just so everybody kind of gets an idea.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Intuition is a sense or feeling inside of you that helps you understand things even when you don't have all the facts. We go based on our knowledge a lot of times, but sometimes we miss that inner feeling, that inner sense that really guides us, that little voice. And I call that voice the voice that I fight with. I honestly do. I'm like, we're going back and forth. And sometimes my husband's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, myself, and I'm okay with that because I'm literally fighting with this voice. And
Too funny.
so being intuitive, okay, it means that it's someone who is good at using their senses or
Hmm.
feeling inside of them to receive the answers. Like, okay, can I accept this? Right? Because a lot of times I remember when I was working in pharmaceuticals and had no idea about energy healing or being intuitive or any of that, I kind of just didn't I thought that the little voice was something weird and that's woo woo and that shouldn't be there. And I think a lot
Mm.
of people do think that's not normal. And so for me, I had the intuition work for me here and there sometimes, and I listened to it many times, but I didn't because I didn't know what that was, what it should look like, or how it should come in. And like I said, we're not taught that. And I feel like if youngsters were taught that, and I teach my children this all the
Mm.
time, and it's so, so important and crucial that we understand that inner voice. When something did happen, and it was all good, I was like, thank God I did that. Right. And how many times have we done that? Like, oh, thank God I followed that inner voice.
I
Or
turned left instead of right.
yeah. And we think that it was just like, oh, wow, where did that come from? But it's not. When I worked in the pharmaceuticals, right? There was a time when I almost gave up my job before I should have given it up. And I'll tell you what happened. I was being bullied by my boss. And I would be in tears. I didn't want to go to work and it happened for a while. Then one day that inner voice, that gut feeling, whatever, it was speaking louder and louder and it said you need to speak up. And I always was scared of speaking up. So I've learned a lot through this intuitive voice. And I spoke up to her one day in a meeting. And after that, everything changed. Because what I was doing was making assumptions that, oh, if I speak up, I'm going to get fired. If I speak up, this is going to happen. I was creating stories,
Right.
right? And so those stories were keeping me in fear. And so when I did speak up, I said, okay, I'm going to speak up because I'm going to have to do something. I think that's what this voice is telling me. Like, I'm going to have to do it. Otherwise, the problem is going to get worse. And so I took my chances and I did it, and everything fell into place the way it should have from the beginning. And
Hmm.
if I had spoken up, then of course you go back and like, well, I wish I did it earlier. Right? So there's this part of us that we can't make assumptions. We just go with it and watch life unfold. We become victims too often and we shut down and we self-sabotage ourselves because we are again fighting with that voice. But I had to let go a lot of self-doubt because that's something that comes up when you are being guided by your intuition. And in my life, that was always made, the decisions were always made by the elders, and they taught me what I should believe in. And
Right. Yes, in my culture as well.
yeah, and they make all the decisions, and they come up with all these beliefs. And so we have to rewire these beliefs. So I wasn't always intuitive. I had to learn all of the intuitive abilities, and we all have them. And now I have 8 intuitive senses open. So we all have 8 intuitive senses, and that's what I teach about. But I'm so proud of it because it is my GPS of life. And it has really helped me build my confidence in every aspect of my life and really bring peace, and more joy to every decision I make. So sometimes, we think that everything that has happened in our life, and we shut our intuition down, but we can awaken it at any point in time. So remember that.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of wisdom. And it seems to me, I want to tell you a little story about my mom, my maternal side, were what my mom would say psychic, right? Like just, but the thing is growing up, it was a kind of annoying because she'd always figure out when we were lying. But aside
Yes.
from that, I didn't lie a lot. Um, but it was always seemingly negative things. So I wanted to ask your opinion about this because it was like, she's like, I'm psychic, and she would be suspecting my dad of doing something covertly, or, my sister lying, and, all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't like she was 100% correct, but she had such negative predictions all the time. And she was, well, I'm psychic, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't think like even 1/10 of what you said was actually true. But then there were times where she was right on.
Yeah.
So it just seemed to be fear-based, fear-based, fear-based intuition. So how is that different from what you're talking about? Because some people are like, you don't, you get run over by a car if you go that way, right? Like,
Yeah.
is that intuition or is that just fear?
Yeah, I call that superstition.
Yeah,
There
it's
are there are
fear-based.
fear-based. No, and my mom was the same way, so I
Mm.
can relate because my mom, one of the fears that she instilled in me was that dogs, if you see a dog, you better run the other way because otherwise they'll bite you. Okay. So that was a fear-based intuition. Sure. Intuition is the knowledge and of our experiences, right? And that's what she was using, was her experience, right? But she felt like, okay, there's a dog there, it's going to bite you. So we just stay away from it. And so a lot of times people will use their fears and call it intuition,
Mhm.
but intuition comes from a lot more peaceful and calm place,
Yeah.
and really is not, it's not fear-based at all, honestly, because it's very universal. When your intuition is connected to source, okay, and you could call it God, you could call it universe, you could call it whatever you want, but it is of higher vibration. And when that high vibration comes through, it feels good, not scary,
Good
right?
advice.
Remember that if it's scary, then it's coming from a belief. Okay.
Mm.
If it's a yummy feel good feeling, okay, that feels more, you know, good, and it feels more relaxing. And now I can work from that space. Because a lot of times in life, what are we always looking for? We're looking for solutions, right? We're looking for solutions because there's always problems, there's always challenges, there's always obstacles. And if we didn't have those, I don't think life would be as fun.
Right. We probably wouldn't grow and
Exactly. We wouldn't learn anything. And
yeah.
it's our job here on this planet is to learn. But what are we learning? We're learning to follow this inner wisdom. And so to have that inner wisdom, we have to be connected up here. And when you're connected, and I'm not saying you have to be believing in God, but you have to believe that there is a higher frequency and a vibration that we can elevate ourselves to in order um to get where we want to be. We all have these goals, we all have dreams and desires, And so all of that can happen for you and manifest for you every single day. And those
Mm.
problems can become solutions very, very quickly.
Yes, I like that. And in fact, the problems that we are conditioned to think shouldn't happen are often gateways
Yeah.
to and opportunities to access our intuition, to even practice, train, enjoy different aspects of our life. And although it can be really uncomfortable sometimes, these challenges, they can be the best thing that's ever happened to us, which is, my experience. Now, let's talk about drawbacks. Are there actually any negative side effects? Okay, I got to talk to the pharmaceutical rep and you. Negative side effects to, developing our intuition? Just curious.
So some of the most common challenges that really hold people back from using their intuition is the self-doubt, like second guessing, right? How many times do you make a decision and then you keep going back and forth? I mean, I used to do that, and then my mom does that now. I see it more and more. My husband does that, and it drives me insane because I'm like, listen, just go with that first thing that you go,
Mm.
right? Don't go back and forth because it really puts a lot of pressure on you, and it will put you in fight or flight because now your nervous system is like, what is happening? And
Oh.
it stresses you out, creates inflammation in the body. I mean, it's a whole array of problems. And you would know, Dr. Karen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Been there, done
So,
that personally.
exactly. So, second guessing, self doubt, using our logical minds, and really just looking back at our previous failures, right? We lose confidence because
Mm.
of that. And then as children, we didn't have a lot of power. So anytime something happened, we got punished for it. And so the more that happened, the more punishment we got, and the more we shut down a lot of parts of us that were really, really important. And then created this bubble of, okay, I I doubt myself. And so I'm going to self sabotage everything that comes my way because I don't deserve the goodness. Right.
Mm.
And so intuition is something that's good. And so when it becomes fearful, because I know I grew up in a lot of fear. And so when that happens, we feel like, okay, then we're going to have these drawbacks of thinking that the other thing is bringing in low vibrational energy. And what I mean by that is, oh, if I open up, bad things will happen to me, or
Ah,
I'll take on other people's energies,
right.
right?
If I
Or, I
open
mean,
up my gifts, I may be attacked or something.
exactly.
Okay.
But the biggest thing that I find, and I was talking to somebody today, and she's like, I feel like if I do that, I want to do that, but I feel like I'm gonna bring in some bad stuff. And
Mm.
so knowing that that's fear based again, and you don't have to work with your intuition that way, knowing that it can bring in the good is a huge, huge aspect of how we can refocus, and rewire our brains, right? Because we have to do the rewiring, we have to do the work in order to make things happen for us. And intuition is something that does require work. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and every single day I see clients and I'm using my intuition, but I also use it on a daily basis, like every minute of my life, whether
Mm.
it's, okay, should I meditate? What time should I meditate? Is it time to do yoga? Like I ask myself these questions. But the drawbacks that I often see is the second guessing and the indecisiveness and the fear of bad things happening.
Right. And I certainly that culturally, you're talking about rewiring the brain is so important because culturally, a lot of people learn, I did, that you can't make mistakes,
Exactly.
that you have to get it right the first time. Like my parents are still talking about, and this is like almost 20 years ago, still talking about my first marriage and divorce. Like their whole spiel is like, I shouldn't have married him. I'm like, seriously, we're still
I
talking about that? You know what I mean? Whereas I'm at that place
you
of
shouldn't
gratitude.
have. Yeah, you
Yeah, you
shouldn't have
shouldn't
done this.
have. You should have
Shouldn't
figured it
have.
out. You know,
I
you
know.
should have learned from other people's mistakes. And I'm like, you mean your mistake and how you and dad bicker all the time? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I did learn from your mistake, right? Anyway, so it's very interesting, this cultural and this rewiring that's necessary. Now, tell us a little bit about, and we'll come back to some of these topics, but tell us a little bit about, you talked about working with clients. So what do you do with your clients?
Yeah, so I practice a modality called quantum body awakening. And when I have clients come to me, most of the time they're having health problems, chronic health problems. I've worked with recently a lot of women who have come to me with breast cancer,
Hmm.
nodules, cysts, all kinds of different things, especially sleep problems, digestive issues. Those are some of the biggest. But I feel like under every health issue, there's a block of emotions.
Hmm.
And the human experience, you can experience 34,000 different kinds of emotions. Now, if we can experience that many, and if 90% of emotions are repressed, right? And we're having all these emotions all day long, sometimes we recognize them, but we don't until they're very, very strong. So, what I do is I go into the subconscious and I collect all the information, all the stories. I pick up on people's age, I pick up their pain, I pick up past lifetime information. I pick up stories from this lifetime and I collect all this data and I share it with them. And I ask them if it resonates with them. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But intuitively, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm picking up. This is what I'm feeling. And most of the time, 96% of the time, I would say I am correct on what I'm picking up.
Hmm.
And I help them clear these because these are what creates blocks in the body. When we hold on to certain emotions that are low vibration, like anger, fear, and a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I'm not angry. I'm like, no, you're just quiet about your anger.
Oh, yes, that was me during fibromyalgia. I'm not angry, and the healer's doing Reiki and goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm seeing all this black stuff coming out of your liver," and I was so embarrassed.
Exactly, exactly. And when I've had energy healing done as well, they're like, you're angry, you're upset. And I knew I was angry, but they were sharing with me all these other emotions that I didn't even realize. I was like, oh my gosh. And it scared me, right?
Mm.
Something, people who are skeptical or doing energy healing for the first time, it's a little scary. So I help those people walk through it. I explain to them exactly what I'm going to be doing,
Yeah,
how it's going to be
it's
done, and I
great.
guide them. And
Right, because the people can be re-traumatized if,
exactly,
the healer is not intuitively checking in on what they're able and willing to accept or understand in the moment.
exactly. And so once we clear these blocks, Dr. Karen, it is amazing what unfolds. I mean, I've seen people go from procrastination to completely motivated, people like cleaning up their clutter in their home because they all of a sudden cleared all these blocks. Then I've got people who have had financial success and gotten money back from the IRS. And I'm like, hey, I
Love
work
it.
a lot of different people in a lot of different aspects of their life, clearing these blocks and subconscious beliefs and subconscious imprints. And, their life has unfolded beautifully for them. So that's what continues to inspire me to keep doing what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. Well, tell us your website, and then we're also going to link all the links to connect with Deeple and the for everyone listening in or watching below the show notes. So, but you can actually say it out loud, Deeple, if you wouldn't mind, your website, and then if somebody wanted to work with you or maybe look into working with you, what's involved.
Yeah. So if you would like to work with me, well, first of all, my website is Ananda, ANANDA, the number 4 life.com, or you could go to deepalshah.com. It'll take you to the same place. And you can take a quiz there right on that page, which will tell you your 2 most prevalent and strongest intuitive abilities. So you can do that. And on the site, you could also check out the shop page. There is where you could find healing MP3s. You could work with a healer, and you could look at some of the programs that we have as well. We have a full resource of healing and support for you.
That's great. And then you also mentioned to me earlier before we hit the record button about a discovery call. What's that about?
Yeah, so I want to, if you are unsure of what your intuitive abilities are or what you are capable of, or you just want to kind of know where you stand, and if you even have intuitive abilities, you can book a 30-minute discovery call with me, and we'll do it live via video or a conference line. And I believe, Dr. Karen, you have that link. It's
Yes, we'll
Deep.
put the link in the.
Yep, it's deepalshah.as.me/medical, mentorship consult. So it is a little long. I'd rather you just click on the link that
Click
Dr.
on the link below. We'll label it. Okay. Oh, that's cool. So, people, getting back to intuition for a moment now, you talked about 8 senses, and so you piqued our interest about, woo, what's that about? So, can you give us a little hint more about how, what parts of our senses can help with our intuition?
Yeah, so a lot of people know that they're clairvoyant, right? They or clairsentient. You may have heard of some of these, clairsalient, clairaudient, and this is just hearing, seeing, knowing. A lot of people, when they come to me, a lot of students will tell me that they have a knowing, but I help you turn that knowing into something even bigger, to where you're able to see things, to where you're able to hear things, to where and people hear things, they just don't know, and a lot of times all of these senses work together.
Hmm.
But we're trying to pinpoint, okay, well, what's happening, but how do we do that? A lot of times we don't know how to do that. And so if you want to get stronger and clearer on certain intuitive senses, then that's what I help you do. And so we work on the ones that are already there, we strengthen those, and then we bring in new ones. So it's a lot of fun exercises, and a lot of I'm not going to say a lot of meditation, but a lot of tools and techniques that you can take with you and practice every single day to help you gain more clarity and bring in and open up those senses.
Oh, that's great. And it sounds like you've been teaching your kids some of these tools, right? Is that what you were saying earlier?
I teach them. Nowadays, it's a little bit difficult because they are teenagers, but
We should do the opposite.
I still tell them, listen to your inner voice. And you know what? Um, one of my daughter is very, very good at listening to her inner voice, and she'll
Okay.
just go with it. Um, at one point she was even able to see things, hear things, and all of that, and she shut it down because there was a
Oh,
teacher in school that told her, she was healing one of her friends, and this teacher told her, you don't need to be doing what your mom does.
oh boy.
And so she, after that day, she shut everything down.
Oh.
And now she's going through life, but I feel like she's still listening. It's just not, she's not speaking my language. She's still doing the work, but not speaking the language we used to connect with.
Oh man.
you
Yeah.
know Talk
Yeah,
about
it's
angels
funny
and
how society is. It's like, we call these gifts, I call these gifts superpowers, right? And so it's like we don't encourage our society in general, does not encourage children and adults for that matter to tap in, tune in, and expand on their superpowers because well, who knows what the bigger picture is, but it's so empowering. But I can imagine it being intimidating if
Exactly.
people are afraid of what they don't understand.
I completely agree. And that's exactly what it was. It was a misunderstanding, but I feel and it's unfortunate, but I feel like she still has this knowing like in the back of her mind because of everything that I teach and preach on a daily basis. I know it's there. She may not
Mhm.
want to talk about it. She may not want to use the same lingo and whatever, but
Right.
I know that as she gets older, she's not going to care about everything else. And then she'll be speaking the same language.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, it's like what gets results, right? Like
Exactly.
if we're attracting or creating more of what it is we desire, then if she has a little bit of even a tiny bit of stubborn streak in her, right? Uh,
Exactly.
then that's really good because then she can go, wait a second, you know what? This works. So
Yeah,
why wouldn't I do this or be more like that, even if it's not acceptable to
exactly.
the, an authority figure. So,
Exactly. And she does do that. So you tapped
mm.
into that correctly. She does. She's not afraid to use her voice with any of us.
Oh, too funny.
Anyone.
That is too funny. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, it's really, I mean, I have a big soft spot for teenagers. I didn't have a lot in my practice, but the ones I did have, they were all highly sensitive.
Yeah.
And so they didn't actually know how to control, if you will, or manage these superpowers. So they were pathologized, if that's a word. Like they were told they were sick, right? So yes, some of them had symptoms like, 14-year-old fibromyalgia. Like I remember going through medical school forever ago, and it's like you never saw anyone that was that young with fibromyalgia. Usually, it's some woman in her 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, but you didn't see a 13, 14-year-old with that, and we're seeing that now.
Yeah.
We are seeing more sensitive souls being born, of course, but it was always about there's something wrong with you. That was the message they were getting. That's so sad.
And that's still the case,
Mm.
and it's unfortunate because I just had a client the other day whose mom, and she's in her 60s, 70s, and her mom back in the day was put in a psychic ward because they thought something was wrong with her because of her intuitive abilities. And so
Yeah.
what I see is that a lot of people who do want to tap into the healing realm or do want to heal themselves naturally are afraid to do so because of these triggers in the subconscious, these stories that sit there reminding them that, oh, something bad can happen,
Right.
Um,
It's kind of in the collective, so
yeah,
they can actually feel that in the collective,
exactly.
that fear.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so that's why. But I think at
Mm.
some point, Dr. Karen, I feel like in the next few years, more and more, I mean, if you think about it, even media, even the movies, everybody talks about energy, right? Star Wars, I think was, I don't know if it was the first one, but the force is within you, right? Like that light, like they were already talking about that. I don't think everybody understands it when they start talking about energy in these shows and how it really works, because I think people are starting to now realize that everything is energy. But I think the more we spread the word, uh,
Right.
then people won't be afraid of it anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's great. That's so cool. Like I said, I love the young people, and there have been times where, like I said, on the one hand, they're getting all these messages that
I
there's something wrong with them, they need these medications and things like that,
know.
and literally, they may be sensing, like there was one child that was, um, just really, really sensitive, and she was like an A+ student, just an incredible student, but she had these disabilities, right? And she was, going in this classroom, and she went to do the exam and she failed the exam. Well, this is an A+ student. Why would she fail the exam? So I said, did you remember well, at that point I used a protective bubble as the word I used. I said, did you put on your protective bubble so you didn't feel other people's stuff? And she's like, oh, I forgot. Hadn't seen her for a while. So the reminders, the accountability wasn't there. And that's exactly what it was, because all of a sudden she went from feeling calm to completely anxious because she was feeling everybody else's anxiety who was afraid of taking the test. She wasn't afraid of taking the test. She knew she was going to ace it. But the minute she stepped in that classroom, she was overwhelmed with all this. So it's intuitive information, but almost like overloaded.
Yeah, and that's how my daughter used to be. So I used to teach her the zip up method. You
Oh,
know,
yes.
I'm like, just zip up your energy field, zip up like you're zipping up a jacket, and you'll be perfectly fine. And so when she'd come home and she's like, oh, I got a headache, or this happened, at school, and school is a place of a lot of low vibration, like a lot
Yeah.
of energy, a lot of
Yeah.
emotion. And so for kids that are very sensitive, we have to teach them these things. You know,
Hmm.
if there was a way to do that
Oh my gosh.
without them
Yes.
thinking
Aside from
that, oh,
homeschooling, or
yeah,
maybe,
without them thinking that, oh, that's too woo-woo or that's weird, right? So
right.
I really do,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, well, that's actually it's one of my bigger dreams, Deepal, is like that sensitivities or superpower book. I have a camp for that. Right now it's
yeah,
only for adults. But I would love to have camps on all four continents for little kids and then
yes,
teens and then adults because we definitely need this normalized.
yes.
That's just part of
And
who
it
we
starts
really
at young
are.
age, right? It starts
Yeah.
at a young age. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
does. It does. So is there a technique or something you could share with us to maybe get people started on how to either connect with their intuition or maybe listen in on what their intuition is actually saying?
Yeah, so I'll give you a few techniques because I love each and every one of these, and I do give a lot in my newsletters and my social media platforms where you could follow me, but I like to go for a 30-minute walk. If I say 5 minutes, it doesn't do the trick. I know that 30 minutes when I go for a walk, even if you're walking on the treadmill, it doesn't matter. Without any technology, you just listen, just be open to listening.
Mm,
Ask a question, right? And watch the
okay.
answers come flooding through. Because, I realize that I just go for a walk and I will ask the question if I'm having a problem to something, whether it's in my relationship, whether it's an answer for my kids that I need, that I can't solve a problem between our communication skills or whatever is happening in my life, or whether it's for my business. When I go for a walk, I get downloads because I'm
Mm,
present in my walk, and you're out in nature. And so when you have those elements of nature working with you, the creativity just flourishes, right? And so, number one, go for a walk. The second thing that you can do is when you're faced with a decision or a creative task, I like to pose empowering questions to myself, framing them in a positive, solution oriented manner, right? So, let's say you're having a relationship issue with your kids or partner. So, here's what I would ask out loud or in my mind: in what ways can I nurture and strengthen my personal relationship by expressing gratitude and appreciation for this person or for this situation? Right? We have to, instead of, struggling and saying, why did this happen to me? Let's turn that around into gratitude and appreciation and ask from that space.
so
And
even if we're not in the space of gratitude in the moment, asking the
that
question, the mind actually goes, "Oh, wait a second. Let me think about it."
Exactly, exactly. Because by asking this question, I'm putting it out there to the
Right.
universe that
That it
give me
must exist.
number one, and that I am coming from a space of love. Okay. And I'm engaging my intuition to finding more creative, meaningful ways to show appreciation. Because if
Mm.
you are not in that space of gratitude and appreciation, then it's harder to find answers. And we know that from our experiences. Okay. How many times have you been in that place where you just ask and then you still fall into problem mode, right? Because we're not asking it in the right way,
That's
right?
right. Yeah, that's very important what you share. That's a really great tool. Because, yeah, most people just ruminate. Like I was like the number one ruminator. I'd
Yeah.
ruminate about a problem for days and days and days and days and days and days, and was wondering why I couldn't get an answer, right? And just reframing that whole piece like that is, awesome. I love being in the body because I tend to be up here a lot. So if I'm in the body and I'm feeling what's running in the body, then my mind starts to go, oh, what am I supposed to look at? I'm supposed to feel something in the body. Oh, okay, fine. Right. And then it does it. And then that blah, 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 shuts off. And then that intuitive guidance just plops in. It's very subtle.
It
And
is.
like you said, it's neutral. Like it's not, it's positive or neutral. It's not like, like, okay, this is my funny story, Deep. I got to tell you this. So sometimes people got, my former patients and clients would get confused about their intuition because the clairaudient, okay, I don't know if you've gotten this with your clients, but some of my clairaudient folks, sometimes they're listening to what they think is a guide, okay? But the guide is giving them information that me as a medical doctor and where I am, I'm like, what? Right? But if it's fear based, right? Like you said, if it's fear based, then perhaps that is not your intuition. But
Right.
sometimes people are clairaudient and they can hear a guide saying, well, you have to do this or the world will end.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to go in the middle of the night on a full moon and dance naked in this pasture at this exact location or the world will end. And I'm like, okay, well, how's that working for you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I know I understand because I have had a few clients that have had that. But then we tap into, okay, what kind of energy is this guide? And that's a whole different topic. But
Yeah, right. But that's a hint, right? If it's fear based,
exactly. Exactly.
then it probably is not guidance, or the ideal guidance if it's fear based. And yeah, my other funny story, Deepa, was like somebody came in and said, "Well, my guide said that you need to prescribe antibiotics for my ear pain."
Oh,
And I said, "Oh, really? Well, do you mind if I take a look at your ears?" I'm doing the whole history, the physical,
yeah.
got the doctor hat on, right? Look at her ears. They're completely fine, right? Did not warrant antibiotics. So that's when I was questioning this guide, like, I wonder, who this guide is, right? And it ended up, that it was somebody well-meaning, a spirit, but not somebody she should have been listening to.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And
So,
that's where we have to discern the information
yes.
that we're getting, definitely. And that's where your intuition comes in, right? Because we have to learn to ask the questions, right, Dr. Karen? Like you've been saying, okay, I ask, and I hear you say that quite often, right? I ask. So I feel like a lot of people don't do that. But when you become and when you're learning to awaken your intuition and make it stronger, you will know that it's so important to ask, right? And we don't ask because when we did ask as children, we got in trouble.
That's right. That is so true.
So we stopped asking. And
Yep.
so we don't know how to ask. And
Yep.
so right now, the students that I have in my Quantum Body Awakening Medical Intuitive program, I teach them, I'm like, listen, ask. And it's interesting because I have to write down all the questions for them. And they're like, oh, that's a really good one. Oh, that's a really good one. I'm like, yeah. And you just have to practice asking. And once you
Right.
start asking, you're going to be so good at it
Yep.
that you'll immediately get the answers, you
Yeah.
know? So it's all about asking, and you can start practicing that right now. So there's the third thing.
Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah. Okay. So we got the walk, right? 30-minute walk.
30-minute walk. And then the second thing is when you're faced with a decision, you pose a positive, you turn it into
Right.
positive by adding gratitude and appreciation to the problem. And then the third thing is ask
Yeah.
your body, ask questions. It's okay to do that. You're not going to get in trouble.
Yes, yes, that is fantastic. So let me just share your website again, Deepal. So it's anandaforlife.com. So ANANDA the number 4, life.com. And then we'll put the link to get a free discovery call with Deeple to see if working with her and maybe tuning into, tapping into, and expanding your intuition would be a good fit to work together. And then we'll also put her social media links below as well: Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Deeple, this has been absolutely lovely conversation. Do you have words of wisdom that we can kind of close the show with?
Yeah. So my final words are to trust your voice. It is your best friend. And I appreciate being here with all of you, as well as you, Dr. Karen. It's always a joy. And I hope that this journey today helped you understand more about yourself, your abilities, and what can actually awaken if you just put a little bit of time towards it. And at Ananda for Life, we are here to support you in whatever manner that you need support. Everyone's situation is unique. And so we are here to listen to you and support you on your journey.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Deepal, for being a light in the world, for being my soul sister, and for the lovely work you're doing. It's fantastic. I see all of us like little nodes of light, just connecting all over the world. It's so cool. And then your students and my students, and we're just like more and more and more lights. It's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, so thank you. And also thank you to our beautiful light medicine community, our light warrior community, for tuning in. Until next time, big love to you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you next time.